The Land of the Dead is this really colorful underworld, and it's not specific to any mythology. We're not really all that clear about the rules.
The world of the living is actually much more dead than the world of the dead, you know, which is much more alive.
The underworld seems like a lot more fun than the upstairs part.
Just the opposite. It's party time. On Land of the Dead, the characters, they had to be stylized, fun, and nice to look at. And at the same time, we didn't want it to do something gross.
The horror element is definitely, it's whimsical and fairy tale-ish, although I appreciate that we're keeping some of that in there, because it's the Land of the Dead.
There's been a mistake. I'm not dead.
In the story of the Corpse Bride, there are two very, very different worlds. There's the land of the living, and there's the land of the dead.
They're both good, and that's not the problem. It's just the problem of being caught between two different worlds.
The land of the living is where Victor and Victoria, his wife-to-be, live. It's a very repressed, uptight, frigid society, loosely based on a period around about the Victorian times.
What impropriety is this? You shouldn't be alone together.
And it's everything about the styling of that period has tended to accentuate that sort of repression.
I mean, we are trying to contrast sort of the rigidness and formality of our Land of the Living with organic openness of Land of the Dead.
I've got a dwarf, and I'm not afraid to use him. What's going on here? Where am I? Who are you?
We divided the worlds by color palette. Land of the Living, we didn't want a black and white look or a sepia look, but we wanted something kind of close to a tintype or a daguerreotype. But instead of desaturating the film, we thought we'd paint the characters and the sets in those tones, and hopefully it would just give it a little more punch.
We had to create all these characters for this film, and we have Land of the Living and Land of the Dead. So they were kind of two groups that they were working separately, and at the same time, they had to have the same style.
The Land of the Living characters have been probably the most difficult to produce because the Land of the Dead characters are much more vibrant, the colours and the way that they're sculpted. It's a much easier job to handle those.
They're much more colorful, they're much more stylized. So we kind of play off sort of the symbolism of the fact that the people in the Land of the Living are pretty much dead and the people in the Land of the Dead are pretty lively.
In looking at the characters of the film, we're using a lot of sort of the British stereotypes, especially that kind of upstairs-downstairs quality, which is literally Land of the Living being upstairs and downstairs being Land of the Dead. So I think we're sort of tweaking the basic British social stratification.
We're moving this wedding party upstairs.
Upstairs? I didn't know we had it upstairs.
Sounds creepy. Let's go!
Although we wanted to keep some of the influences in architecture and sort of scope of the Land of the Living, we've created a very bright and colorful and kind of crazy world. The implication there is, of course, that the dead are free from all the restrictions that they once lived under in the Land of the Living.
I'm so sorry. Actually, though, I feel great.
The humor, the darkness of the humor and the quirkiness of some of these background characters in the Land of the Dead is very engaging.
Get to the good part.
Victor meets a lot of very, very interesting and funny characters and finds out that life in the Land of the Dead is pretty high octane. You know?
And he becomes almost drawn into that society. And how the two worlds meet at the end is part and parcel of the story of the Corpse Bride.
The director has to have a total picture in his mind of exactly what he wants. And that's what's so wonderful about Tim. He really is my favorite director. There's always a bit of a dark side to Tim's work.
Coming through, coming through. My name is Paul. I am the head waiter.
And the inventiveness he has and the imagination he has.
Can the living marry the dead?
It's a very particular place for an actor to dwell, is in Tim Burton's imagination.
He's got this very stylistic, I mean, he's got such fingerprints, Tim, you know, you see them at once.
Tim's approach is the approach of an artist, almost like a painter, you know, looking at a blank canvas.
It's a great thing that in this day and age of computer graphics, that somebody with the vision of Tim Burton has come along and said, yeah, but we can still make model animation films.
Tim Burton's the patron saint of this craft right now, and I
doubt that we'd be doing this without his influence.
It was like a little short story, it was only a couple of paragraphs long. It just sort of captured my attention, and, you know, I was always looking for something else to do in the stop-motion medium. It just seemed like it was right for that particular type of animation. Hey, guys, how you doing? This is a big one.
His ideas and his projects are what kind of brought it back into the public eye. A lot of the dinosaur effects and things that it used to be used for, that was all going to computer. It's because of his interest and his passion for it that these projects can get rolling.
We have to get it out here, we have to get lights on it, and then we have to play with the color.
But so far, to me, it's doing what,
I think
what
it's
you've been talking about.
really rich and beautiful.
Yeah.
He is closely involved in all the creative decisions. Yeah, I mean, it's the designs go through him, the storyboards, and it's very much his vision.
Like that.
Yeah.
And ready to like.
So in a funny way, it's a very dark cartoon comedy noir. It marries the two very well together. This blackness with beautiful humor. But I don't even know your name.
That's a great way to start a marriage.
Shut up! And it's traditional storytelling, too. In the great sort of tradition of the Grimm brothers.
I think it's quite an unusual world, which is what you'd expect with Tim Burton.
I think something interesting, offbeat.
Play dead.
Amusing.
Disgraceful. Excuse me. Got it.
And scary.
Grandpa?
Would be a Tim Burton film.
When Tim first described it to me, it's like, what's about a guy who accidentally marries a corpse? It sounded really scary and gothic and horrible. And yet we ended up making this really charming movie, and that you don't really think about characters being dead or alive. You sort of see it as this really sweet little love story.
Working with Tim now is not that different than it was 20 years ago. Our process is still pretty much the same.
I used to go see his band in clubs, you know. So it's kind of like we both didn't know what we were doing at the same time. You know, we sort of started kind of at the same time in a certain way.
Like it. Okay, Jonesy, take it.
Danny's doing several songs for the film, the opening number, According to Plan.
It's a beautiful day.
It's a rather nice day.
A day for a glorious wedding.
Where we introduced all the characters in the land of the living and sort of get the backstory.
It's a sad, sad state of affairs we're in.
That has led to this ominous wedding.
It's an arranged marriage, and Victor wanders and he sees a piano in their house. And he starts playing a piece, and this piece will become Victor's theme, which carries throughout the movie. That was the first thing I wrote, because it had to be animated, so his fingers were really actually playing the piano piece. So I wrote that when I wrote the songs. So when I started writing, I listened again to his piano piece, and that became the main theme for the whole movie. So when he's having his moment with the corpse bride, where he thinks Victoria's gone off and married another man, he says, maybe, you know, you are a good person, and I do like you, and sure, what the heck. And I'm playing, again, his piano theme in their moment between them.
It sounds very haunting. I like it. I'd like to try one just to see what it does. A touch warmer. Play out just a little bit more. Even though I think I'll probably use the one you just did, which sounded lovely.
I generally do all the percussion and synthesizers and odd stuff. I record myself, and I'll take that in with me. In The Corpse Bride, there's a lot of harpsichords and organs and things like that. Those will play along with the orchestra. When I record orchestra, I just want to record orchestra. I don't want to record anything odd or unusual or difficult to mic or something where I'm going to have to spend time tweaking the sound. I prefer to find those sounds, play it myself, and then take the parts in.
Really, it's just like, it's very subtle performance things. We're just going to get a few moments are very light and tricky.
I'm trying to musically tell a story whenever I score a film. Occasionally, I'm literally telling a story, so that's getting very direct. It's like, okay, we're telling the story of how the corpse bride got to be a corpse and what happened to her. So, tell it in a song.
Hit it, boys.
It was Tim's thought early on, which I pretty much did, is that in the Land of the Dead, it's kind of jazzy. In fact, Bone Jangle's song is, in fact, like a 1930s Cab Calloway song.
I'll tell you a story, make a skeleton cry of our own jubiliciously lovely corpse bride.
Remains of the Day, the Bone Jangle song, I intended it for a gruffer voice. And we auditioned 25, 26, 27 people, at least. And then finally, Tim called and he said, look, would you mind just doing the song? Bone Jangle's song is a little gruffer, it's like this, and it's kind of hard for, it was really brutal.
Now when she opened her eyes, she was dead as dust. Her jewels were missing and her heart was bust.
I had to make changes 3 times. Every time I did Bone Jangles, I was hoarse for the rest of the day. Part of a composer's work is coming up with music, but a big part of our work is getting inside the director's head and understanding what's going to make them respond.
There in the shadows, was it the man? The little heart beat so loud. And then...
Working with the songs with Tim is always fun. You're just telling a story and putting music to it.
He is definitely going back to his roots with those songs. The project's been around for probably 10 years to finally get made, and a lot has to do with finding and getting a great group of people together. A lot of people get, sort of sucked off into doing computer stuff, but there's still this great group and rare group of people that are still into this type of animation.
Looks great, yeah.
Mike Johnson, who's co-director on this, he's the guy there on the day-to-day kind of slugging it out in the trenches.
Stop motion is such a painstaking process. There's so much detail, there's so much physical work that has to be done to move the project forward, literally frame by frame. Mike comes from a really strong stop motion background, and so he inspires the group and kind of leads them through the Herculean task of getting these shots out.
Mother never approved of Scraps jumping up like this, but then again, she never approved of anything.
Looks good.
A stop-motion project on this scale, it's a rare thing. These projects don't come around very often.
If you're making a live-action film and you're doing it all in blue screen, it doesn't give you that same sort of feeling as actually being there, which this process does.
Quiet down now, everyone. Thank you.
So much of this is such a traditional, old-fashioned method of shooting a film. And I do think now with the advent of CGI, audiences have become very used to a very slick look. And I think stop motion's charm is in its not being too slick and not feeling like it's been made in a computer. And so it's nice to sort of walk that fine line between keeping it in the realm of beautiful and a slickness just because it's so flawlessly executed, but keeping it real and keeping it live, because I think that's what makes it very accessible and appealing.
Now then, where were we?
Stylistically, stop motion offers something very unique, which is every single thing that you see on screen was created by a craftsperson or an artist.
Animators get cast to their strengths. I mean, we've got some animators that are good at action and some that are better at close-ups that show, flitting little emotions.
Phil Dale is someone that is amazing. I mean, he did all of these scenes where Victor and Victoria meet at the piano. It's such a sensitive scene where they say very few things and they're both very shy, and yet you really feel like those two puppets are falling in love.
You play beautifully.
I do apologize, Miss Everglot. How rude of me to... Well...
We've been shooting 14 weeks and it's just taken that long so far to piece it all together.
A lot of people thought that computers and digital technology would be the death of stop-motion animation, but really it's bringing it forward.
This is a Canon EOS 1 Mark II. It's a stills camera.
It's a very sophisticated 35mm digital camera that they shoot with.
Very high quality. It's a 12 gigabit chip. Basically, we are shooting single frames and simply using the data from those frames to stitch a whole film together in single frames. And we can only do this because it's an animation, and the movie is essentially being shot frame by frame.
19. Okay.
It's a very, very long process of just moving and filming and moving and filming and moving and filming. And she's put in a lot more hours than I have, put it that way.
One of the advantages of shooting digitally is that we can see the rushes 2 or 3 times a day.
Nowadays we have computers and video assists, so as we're shooting we can see what we've captured, so we're not animating blind. That helps us to get an idea of the flow of the animation and make sure that the quality stays consistent in that respect.
Basically, we use the computers to trigger the camera and seize the frame. The animator presses a button and that instructs the computer, and the computer will move to the next frame position, shoot the camera.
It's the first time we've ever been able to see things so immediately, and you can make changes as necessary.
The whole notion of, click, next frame, click, next frame. There's a part of you that thinks it may be kind of, but it's not. It's super fascinating.
We simply do the voice, and they then have to fit the facial expressions and lip movements to the words. Well, it's always been like that since the very beginning. That probably is the toughest job of all, I would think, from the point of view of putting it all together.
We had a list of 84, 85 characters. Main characters, secondary characters, and incidental characters.
We can't really give one character to one animator, which would be ideal, but everyone has to work together to, there's so many different shots for individual characters that everyone ends up doing a little bit with each character. So yeah, matching the style and the performances, it's one of the challenges.
People get very attached to the characters they're working on, and I think, especially with this project, the character designs are so fantastic that people want to make every element of that puppet shine, and they have spent hours on every little detail of that character.
I do.
There's just an energy that gets infused into these puppets, from these, amazing animators, and there is something quite special about moving an inanimate object frame by frame.
It has its own very, very special, very unique look, movement, and it's beautiful. And also, it's like a lot of great things,
The puppets were built by McKinnon and Saunders up in Manchester, who are the premier puppet makers in the world, and they've been involved with most stop-motion projects that have been going on for the past 20 years.
The puppets are probably 50% artistry and 50% technicality and hard work. There's a great deal of creative input that goes into the puppets, just in the way that they're sculpted, the way that they're painted, the way that they're costumed.
We're creating 200 puppets, and they've all got to look like they come from the same world. So we need people with an artistic background and great creative skills, but they've got to be prepared to work within the design and work with the designers to ensure that everything looks like it's come from the Corpse Brides world.
Tim had a very clear idea of how he wanted the puppets to look, and he'd been working on designs and sketches and paintings before we met up with him. These were great. I mean, we were excited about being asked to work on the project.
Tim designed most of the characters on his own, and then we had a character designer named Carlos Grangel, who works out of Spain.
Carlos is he's a great designer. My sketches are often quite crude, but he was really sensitive about trying to understand what the feel and the look of it was and then expand upon it.
Every character has his own personality, and personality dictates shape, balance, and rhythm. So every character has his own silhouette. So what is important is that we can recognize every single character when we see it on the screen. And they are puppets, so they have to be really graphic and really stylized. So We had to create many shapes.
The lead characters have mechanical faces, which is something it's been done a bit with commercials and things and a few other projects, but it's never really been pushed to this level before that I'm aware of, as far as having the mechanics be small enough to fit within the scale of these puppets.
Puppets fall into many different categories, so a background character will just be able to sort of move around the set and maybe have one or two very simple facial expressions, but the key characters, Victor, Victoria and Corpse Bride, have to carry the film.
Who's this? Who is she? I'm his wife.
What Mike was really keen to do was to give the animator more flexibility, so the animator can judge how far they want to push each element on the face. It's much more of their own performance, really, at the end of the day.
Hopefully that gives us a much more expressive look than, say, replacement animation or something like that, which is a little more locked off and predetermined. So I've been really happy with the level of expression we've been able to get.
We've invested a lot of time and effort trying to get those characters as articulate as possible. And what we've ended up doing is making these very complicated heads with little gears in that will open and close the jaw and pull pulleys that will enable the character to smile and to frown.
They've really pushed what they can do with puppets in these heads, especially the amount of mechanics they've got inside there for the size of head that the characters have.
They do such beautiful work. I mean, these puppets are very sensitive and textural and really like Swiss watches. You know, they're made so nicely.
Tim's characters are always sort of a challenge to build as a three-dimensional model. They tend to be rather tall and skinny, and they tend to have very tiny feet. So we had to look at the different ways of engineering the joint system that we use inside the models, and then how they would actually support the weight of the character. The difficulty is that the characters' heads are about 25-30 centimeters away from the floor. So an animator is reaching up all the time, trying to manipulate a head, and there's an awful lot of leverage on that model, so it has to be secured well to the set.
We've spent, I guess now, 4 or 5 months developing different rigs. We'd be making things that would help to create the movement. There's an awful lot of puppets that have costumes, and what we've done is we've made this so it sits inside the costume puppet, and the animators can access with a tiny little bar to turn these parts. Create a little motion, vertical motion, so the puppets can bounce like they're walking, but they don't have any feet. So all this is hidden inside the dress. The Bride's a very difficult character. There's so many complicated parts to it. The veil alone's taken weeks of research and trying out different methods of using all sorts of things that were hidden, wires, hard rigs, sort of solid metal rigs, connecting up to it, and then changing the different materials that the veil's made out of.
Fabric, that's a pretty tough thing. Fabric's very difficult to control. A lot of testing has been involved with that.
There's a series of wires that go through the fabric which are virtually invisible.
Don't want to use too much wire because it fights you. You've got to have a certain kind of wire, sometimes no wire. Sometimes we have rigs moving through the dress to look like blowing wind.
We've got a few shots where the wind's blowing and it's blowing a costume. This is a clear shape that when it's underneath you won't see this. You won't see this shape at all, but it'll create the sort of effect of the wind blowing through it, and then it can be animated down, so it's like the wind's trailing off and feathering out.
For the main characters on Corpse Bride, we've made 14 Corpse Brides, 14 Victors and 13 Victorias. The multiplicity of characters is not to do with their disposability, but more to do with the fact that because the animation process is so slow, they have to have multiple setups.
I think Victor's a much better actor than I am, that's for sure. I would prefer that Victor go and, do movies for me. I'll just do the voice.
The prop makers of the props and the sets, great, looks good. Good luck. It's one of the most beautiful processes I've ever been involved with. I was extremely lucky to get this cast and the actors in this movie, because the fact of the matter is, as movies go, it's a fairly low-budget movie, and I was just very lucky and grateful to get people to do voices for just the love of doing a project.
Paul Whitehouse does the voice of William, Victor's father.
Come on, dear, breathe in.
Come on, dear. Easy go.
Tracy Ullman does the voice of Nell. That's Victor's mother.
You've certainly hooked a winner this time, Victor. Now all you have to do is reel her in.
Joanna Lumley is Madeline, the mother-in-law.
Smile, darling.
Finis, Victoria's father, is Albert Finney.
Well, hello. What a pleasure. Welcome to our home.
Pastor Galswells is Christopher Lee.
Her mind has come undone, I fear.
It's not true. Let me go.
Emily Watson does the voice of Victoria.
Did things not go according to your plan, Lord Barkis?
Perhaps in disappointment, we are perfectly matched.
Johnny Depp does the voice of Victor.
You don't understand. She's dead. Look.
The Corpse Bride, of course, is a Helena Bonham Carter.
As we were working on it on a script level, we were always nervous that Corpse Bride would be too scary and that you wouldn't really be able to relate to her. As we sort of shot more and more of it, and as Helena Bonham Carter's performance came in, we realized that, wow, you're so sympathetic to her.
And I thought this was all going so well.
Helena imbues her with such sort of a sadness and a presence and a weight that she's an angel. She is sort of a tragic character who's had this this sort of curse put on her.
It's nice to do. It's like radio. It's so nice to act something when it's so not dependent on what you look like.
So which bit are we doing?
Roses for Eternal Love.
So you completely can create a character and you're not limited by your own physical envelope. So that's fun, you know, and that way it's very liberating.
It takes my breath away. Well, it would if I had any.
Good heavens, Finis, what should we do?
Fetch me musket. Am I starting too early?
Yeah, you know what, Albert? Try a version where you got a little bit annoyed at what's going on and it's a bit brusque, like get the door in the
Right. Well, you get help, of course, from Tim, because Tim's lived with the images for a long time before you're involved. Where do you keep the spirits?
Oh, Finis, who invited these people? They must be from your side of the family.
She's a really, really depressing character. I'd be terrified of her.
Take her to her room!
Even the earliest drawings were an enormous help. It gives you an idea of where the voice is.
Finis, come to bed at once.
Good, Joy. Thank you.
Look at the way he's standing. Look, it's like you got rickets.
I've had great fun being a sort of fat, common snob.
I always knew I deserved better than a fish merchant's life.
Ad-libbing and putting in sort of Victorian lines like, oh, that's a lovely aspidistra. And, oh, remember when he was little, he was so nervous he used to wet his combinations.
Enough! This wedding cannot take place until he is properly prepared. Master Van Dort, you are trying my patience. He's not a sympathetic character at all. Let's try it again.
Yes. Yes, sir.
If somebody doesn't speak up enough, or doesn't give the right answers, or whatever it might be, he's going to be blasted.
Ow!
Pay attention! Begone, ye demons from hell! Back to the void from whence you came! You shall not enter here!
Keep it down, we're in a church.
When they see the puppets acting, and they hear their voice coming out of the mouth of these puppets, I think it must be pretty cool to see them come alive like that.
If I may ask, Miss Everclot, where is your chaperone?
Perhaps, in view of the circumstances, you could call me Victoria. I have scenes with Johnny Depp and Joanna Lumley and Albert Finney, and I've never met any of them. It's really, you just have to imagine most of it in your head. I mean, I was shown work in progress of how the way things look and the style of it, but you're just sort of trying to make it happen in your head, really.
Ah, Mrs. Everclot. You look ravishing this evening. What's that, Mr. Everclot? Call you Dad? If you insist, sir.
When you're recording the voice, you do find yourself moving as the character within the parameters of the microphone and everything. So there's a kind of great spontaneity in there.
In a way, it's sort of pure acting because you don't have anything. You can be entirely selfish. You don't have any marks to hit.
Coming through! Coming through! My name's Plum. Miss Plum.
It's much more liberating. Yeah, you can have a real giggle. You hear what the other person's done, so you know how you're going to respond.
Married, huh? I'm a widow. Oh, how rude.
He went that way!
I suppose you just get used to it, really. The more you do it, the more you get used to doing it in a sort of solitary way. But you've got the director there, and he was fantastic.
They're incredible people, and I'm grateful to each and every one of them because they're amazing actors.
Lord and Lady Everglot, Mr. and Mrs. Van Dort.
Why, you must be Miss Victoria. Oh, yes, I must say you don't look a day over 20. No, yes.
Smile, darling, smile.
Well, hello. What a pleasure. Welcome to our home.
Oh, thank you. We'll be taking tea in the West drawing room.
Do forgive me.
You play beautifully.
I do apologize, Miss Everglot. How rude of me to... Well, excuse me.
Mother won't let me near the piano. Music is improper for a young lady. Too passionate, she says.
If I may ask, Miss Everglot, where is your chaperone?
Perhaps, in view of the circumstances, you could call me Victoria.
Yes, of course. Well, Victoria?
Yes. Victor?
Tomorrow we are to be...
Married.
Yes. Married.
Since I was a child, I've dreamt of my wedding day. I always hoped to find someone I was deeply in love with. Someone to spend the rest of my life with. Silly, isn't it?
Yes, silly. No. No, not at all. No. Oh dear. I'm sorry.
What impropriety is this? You shouldn't be alone together. Here it is 1 minute before 5, and you're not at the rehearsal. Pastor Galswells is waiting. Come at once.
Master Van Dort, from the beginning, again. With this hand I will lift your sorrows. Your cup will never empty, for I will be your wine. With this candle I will light your way in darkness. With this ring I ask you to be mine. Let's try it again.
Yes. Yes, sir.
Elder Goodnight. Are you there? Hello? Is anyone home? Hello? There you are.
Oh, my dear. There you are.
I brought my husband, Victor.
What's that? Husband?
Pleasure to meet you, sir.
We need to go up, upstairs, to visit the land of the living.
Land of the living? Oh, my dear.
Please, Elder Goodnight.
Now, why go up there when people are dying to get down here?
Sir, I beg you to help. It means so much to me. Us?
I don't know. It's just not natural.
Please, Elder Goodnight. Surely there must be something you can do.
Let me see what I can do. Where did I put that book? Left it here somewhere. Ah, there's the one. I have it. A Ukrainian haunting spell. Just the thing for these quick trips.
So glad you thought of this.
Me too.
Now then, where were we?
The Ukrainian haunting spell?
Ah. Here we have it. Ready? Just remember, when you want to come back, say hopscotch.
Hopscotch?
That's it.
Oh, my dear. Oh, don't look at me that way. You have only to suffer this union until death do us part. And that will come sooner than you think.
Oh, it's almost dawn! Where could he be?
Victor Van Dort elopes with corpse. Heartbroken bride to wed wealthy newcomer.
Wealthy newcomer? It cannot be.
Did he say corpse?
Mayhew! Silence that blasted coffin!